What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's been a little bit, but we are back in the garage. Finally got our third set of lights up over in the corner side. Just have to kind of upgrade our breaker to have all the lights on at once, but now we can get to the chaser again. So previously I've mentioned we're selling our old intercooler setup here with these like stainless pie cut piping. We also sold our exhaust, but now we have this nice new treadstone intercooler. So what we're gonna do is move the cars around, get this chaser over on the lift, and then we can do some bumper mock-up, have the bumper down there still, and we're gonna see where we can fit this. It should be pretty close, but I pre-measured it, it's gonna fit, and pretty much get to there, get the exhaust off, so we can get that ready for the guy picking it up, and pretty much just get this mounted today. Measure, order up material, and we're gonna order up material for the exhaust too. We're gonna switch that to a 4-inch because currently we have the 3-inch setup. So I'll just set up the camera, get these all moved out, and come back when we're getting back to the lift. So I actually just had to remove both the side skirts just because the lift was a little too close with it like these all the way screwed out. So we can either go to the frame rail or the pinch weld. Obviously the frame rail is just a better choice because it's more structure, but if we would have lowered it, it would have just got crushed by the arm. So just a small thing. And then what I like to do is strap the rear of the car to the lift as well, just because like big 4-door car, it's a little heavy, you don't want to risk anything. But yeah, I'll show that once we get it all set up. Alright, so racked up. There's no real like frame rails in the rear either, so we use the pinch welds there, but frame rails in the front. So now you can go up. Then every time you want to go up on a lift, you want to kind of rock the car out, make sure it's not going to fall before you go up a lot more. We're just kind of gonna go this height because I do have these long stands over here, and this is what we're gonna put the intercooler on so that we can make sure it's level and relative to everything else, because we want to set the bumper on for front to back, and then we're going to use these to level it out so it doesn't twist, and then we can make our mounts to here. We're going to unbolt this kind of ghetto flat bar mount that we used on the last one. This new intercooler is a lot heavier, so it's gonna need a lot better mounting solution. So then here's our safety strap set up. We just tied to the rear arms. It's this little cross member brace over that, back to this arm, and then tighten it to the middle. Did it above the exhaust so that we could take this off, but So you guys haven't seen this whole setup before, this is like serial 9 mounts, Odyssey Fab reinforcement plates, mounts up there, and then these are all like the Figs engineering mounts, or arms rather. So this is the mega arm kit, and when your alignment is really close, these two arms are almost touching, which is kind of unfortunate. And then like the upper control arms, we just had to like offset more one than the other, so it's not completely OEM like for fitment on those ones. But this is CAS 2-way Super Q diff, and I believe that's it. Just kind of like axle grease around. This is a Shaftmasters 3.5-inch drive shaft, AR5 transmission, solid mounted. Then to our exhaust, which we started cutting, but then, well, we cut the downpipe. And we're gonna just kind of move the fitment, but we're just gonna remake the whole setup. And here's our new billet pan setup, which might have a small little leak somewhere. I might need to tighten up some of the bolts a little more, but the rest of our engine is not leaking, just somewhere over here. And which I did separate this recently to fully drain the pan and just check out for any debris, and that all looked good so far, so it should be good. So these are pretty tight. I need a breaker bar for this. And when I said breaker bar, I mean this guy. There we go. We'll just kind of wiggle our bolts out, make sure not to lose it. Toss it down there with the other guy. And then we just yoink this guy off, and this is studded, so if you were to like make a bash bar, you could just make mounting plates for that. And we theoretically could use this just to kind of make something out of, but we're just going to make something new. Make sure that everything's going to be straight. Alright, so we kind of set up the height so far. I did place this on there. It's a little bit too much forward for the front bumper, so we're going to have to remove this guy. So it's a bolt here, and a spot weld here, and a spot weld here that we're just going to have to drill out. So you just kind of pop that guy out real quick, and then obviously we could probably even bend that off, but it won't take too long to drill it out. And then we can basically move this back from here, so that's about like 3-4 more inches that we can get to go back, and maybe get it flush with the face of this. Okay, I'm gonna try to prop up the camera now. Hopefully we have a decent angle about here. So now I basically just take the intercooler, and then you just kind of want to push as far back as you can before you start hitting stuff. And then you can go up and down on these jacks to kind of position it where you want. Obviously a second person would help quite a bit. But the higher you get this, the more ground clearance you have. That way it doesn't hang below your bumper as well. And then we can use a level on this after rough fitment, but we want to just put this on here now and rough mock up the front bumper. So probably about there, looks decent. And we take our bumper, and it kind of just sits above that small area there. And if it rests on its own, it should be pretty close. Alright, so I'll kind of give you guys a rough estimate. So it's right up against the bumper here, so we can trim this. And then this is kind of maybe a ½ inch back more. It'll line up with our bolt holes. So we could try to get that, and obviously just even this out, figure out where it wants to sit. And then that gives us plenty of room for our intercooler pipes, so we don't have to like notch any of the bumper or anything for that, any like some of the IS300s do. They'll end up putting it so far forward, cut flush here, and circle notch that out, and it kind of looks weird. All right, so this is about as far as we can get. I kind of tilted the bottom inwards a little bit to get the most room, and then that got this a lot closer. Here it's basically lined up. We might have to trim a little bit of the vent just to push the bumper farther back. Does look like there's a weird smudge on the camera now too. I tried to wipe it off, but I think it's just a GoPro in general. So gonna be getting a new camera here soon for some videos. But yeah, so this side is pretty much the same. So now we just have to pull this bumper off and then make tabs back to the studs coming out, and then there's like cast plates. I'll try to stick this in here. Little cast mounting bosses to get the intercooler mounted, so that way we're not just hanging it from two top bolts like the last one, and then that flat piece can like flex up and down. So before we were kind of hanging, I think an inch or two lower with the last intercooler, but now we have pretty, maybe like an inch below the core support, but our pan hangs lower than that, so that's all fine. All right, so we're back from Menards. We got a couple of these like long plate aluminum pieces. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find this angle. We have like a digital protractor. We're just gonna find an angle of that, mark the bolts, and basically bolt a plate here, drill this plate here and mount this, and then we're gonna kind of tack weld them together, and then we're gonna have like a reinforcement from like, it's gonna intersect here, and then we're gonna have a reinforcement at the top, so it's kind of like a three-piece angled iron bit, and then we can, well, not angle iron, but kind of in like how it is a right angle, but we have like an offset shape here. Otherwise it wouldn't really go right in line if we just had a right angle piece. So we can essentially find our bolt pattern, mark it on our secondary piece, and we can drill two at a time, and then we'll basically have it all mirrored. I marked the center on the intercooler up top, and that bar, it's close enough and should come out pretty good. And at the end I do have some flanges for the quick release HD clamps that we're gonna weld on both sides of these. Here we just took two little grease thing and just straight plopped it on there. So we want this to kind of be as flush as it can, like relative to the straightness, and we're just gonna basically touch this to that, and it's gonna leave our bolt pattern on the back. And then we can drill it, lay it over the other piece, and then we have two base pieces for the chassis side, and then we gotta make two for the intercooler side. All right, so I got the holes all drilled up. This kind of set for the length here. As you can see, this is flush here, but also it's not really behind this to give this enough room to have a whole flat plate on it. So I just marked here, kind of where it goes past the frame rail, and then here, and we're gonna make two bend lines. So it's gonna go this way a little bit, and then it's gonna come back the other direction in the same amount of angle, so that way it kicks back and flattens out. So to make sure you get straight lines, you're gonna want a right angle that you know is reliable. So we're gonna use obviously this, and it's just kind of hard to set up with one hand. And we have there, so we're gonna go straight line here, and then we're gonna pull this to our next line. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of put rough marks, but then these are gonna be our two bend lines, and you'll come over and put it in your vise and just make sure let the edge where it's clamping is at your bed line, so that way it doesn't like roll over any spot that you don't want it at. All right, so back over here, our first bend, we went a little much and we started contacting this. So I just kind of bent it back a little bit, and now we have all this space here. So I'm just gonna replicate that on the other side, and then we'll work on making a plate to bolt to this. And we're just gonna kind of cut out the difference of if this overlaps, and then start tack welding them together, and then kind of make a reinforcement plate either from the bottom or from the top. Just kind of depends how it ends up looking when we get to that point. Okay, so both are kind of finished up, just kind of like a rough grind. just so we don't see all the marring marks from bending. But we got that one. About the thickness, I might have to trim this down a little bit just for the thickness of the plate, and then this one's just about the same. So we did a pretty good job on matching the pieces, and we just need to make this side weld it all together. All right, so now our next thing is to find the bolt centers of the intercooler. So I threw 2 bolts in there. We know that that is a M8. So then we take our dial caliper, and we just want to measure outside to outside. And it's a little hard with the intercooler in the way. Try to get the best view here. And then we'll see that we have a measurement of about 32 millimeters. So now if we minus 8 from that, that's gonna put us at 26. So now if we look at the 26 mark, it should line up center to center really well. So then we're gonna mark that on our plate, and I think we're just gonna go up and down. That way we can weld this whole seam here, and that'll give us kind of the most strength. Misspoke for a second. It was 24 is what I meant to say, but I had it on the caliper. But I'll just show you again, just so you guys see it. So that's 24, and it's center to center on each bolt. All right, just had to go inside, get some tuning done real quick, but we kind of paused here. This one I kind of tried to mark the angle and like do this beforehand. So now we're gonna end up cutting this flush, but we're gonna get everything tacked up. This side I just tried to go with the straight up approach, and honestly it was probably better because the intercooler is not at too crazy of an angle to where I would have needed to do that to make it all flush. But now we got our welder set up. So for those that don't know, obviously turn on your welder, make sure your gas is on first thing. This is aluminum, so we're going to be running an AC. So we want our clamp on AC mode. Come over here to TIG aluminum, and on this machine there are some presets that you can use to kind of set for different thicknesses. I think we should be pretty good on probably the 16 gauge setting. We can work it with the pedal, and then this is kind of your post flow and everything. So aluminum you don't need as much as stainless, but we still do want a little bit, so we can just go a few seconds on that. And I'm gonna see if I could try to prop this up somewhere to get you guys a good view on just kind of some of like the welding. We'll see if that stays there. Obviously you want your ground connected, pretty much anywhere that's all connecting to it, and you should have a pretty good spot for that. We'll just need a little bit more stick out, just because we're kind of too close in the crack there. But you want your aluminum to be very tight, so you can't have as much stick out as like a steel alternative. Kind of ran a small pass there, but I'm going to get this side tacked up as well, just so everything doesn't move, and then I can finish the pass, and we're going to make a top plate. Alright, so haven't done aluminum in a little bit, but here is our current. Just kind of ran something on that side, ran a little something there, and then now we're going to cut the tops flush and just add a top plate to weld in and kind of reinforce everything, and then it'll be fixed in place. We can pull it off and weld on our flanges for the quick release. Alright, so we moved everything back over to the bench. We have our top plate to go on. Now we're just going to get this tacked up in a couple spots and then weld it out, and then I have to make the one for the other side. And then these are magnetic, these soft draws, so we don't want this near the torch or else it's just going to interfere with the welding. Just gotta grab some more filler back from out near the car. And then if you do end up kind of messing up the tip a little bit, it's always good to go back and regrind it. We also have one of these Eastwood tungsten grinders. Just turn it on, find the hole up to it. And that's simple. You don't gotta like sit there with a drill and a grinder. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Yeah, piece is just getting really hot, same with the torch, so I'm just gonna call it a break there. But check out our main run. Actually came up pretty good. And yeah, I'll just knock out the other one. We'll get it trimmed up, bolted back to the car, and we can get our intercooler and piece as welded on as well. All right, done with this bracket. Wish I would have recorded this one over the other one, as these came out a lot better overall. I just had to get warmed up, I guess. But I can always just go back over some of like the extra bits, but it's really not like too intensive of a bracket to where we need like loads of strength. I mean, that's like 15 or 20 pounds, but overall with like the intercooler piping and everything, I don't think we're gonna have an issue with that moving at all. But we'll see when we get it back mounted up. I do wanna weld the flanges on before I put the brackets back on. Otherwise, it's just more work to take it on and off. All right, so we got the intercooler down on the bench. Here are our weld-on ferrules. Obviously, you're going to want to take the O-rings off because they will melt if you don't. So it's pretty easy, just flathead. Put it to the side, and then we're gonna put it on like this. It fits great, it's pretty concentric. Just go from there. So I might put up one of doing this. It's just the being pretty large, it's gonna be hard to set up and maneuver this around to weld the whole thing. So we'll see if we record this. All right, so we have one flange down, and just give you a look at all that. Yeah, pretty simple. I was going between the 16th inch rod and the 8th inch rod, just because of how I first tacked it, and then I straightened it out, so then it had a little bit more gap in one spot, but it's all straight relative to that, so that's all that really matters. And now we'll get to the other side. All right, got both sides done. Here's the second side. Started off good. I started to not let it cool down a little bit and had to add a little bit more filler there, but other than that, everything looks great. So we'll probably just have this part towards the front on both sides. Yeah, because those are where it's looking the best. I'll pop the brackets on and we'll get this mounted and we'll be done for the day, other than just kind of seeing which kind of bends and everything we need. So probably just get a couple 90s, couple 45s, and some pie cuts just to work out small angle. And then we'll work out the exhaust from after that. All right, so this is all mounted up now here and here. So everything's still lined up good. The only thing, I can still kind of wiggle it a smidge. And it's about near touching a couple spots. So I do want to pull it out. I'm gonna probably shim it with some cardboard, and then I'll bolt some bottom tabs somewhere and just weld it to the bottom of the core. And then that'll take out all any sort of movement there is. So it is a little heavier for just the brackets than we had anticipated, just for the thickness, but it's whatever. You always do want more points for in case of failure. All right, so what we actually ended up doing was I took some silicone vacuum line here and I kind of just split it down the middle and I just put it along the whole edge, and that'll actually leave us enough room that we do need for wiggle room, so that way it's not as hard mounted, and it's actually going to seal this and kind of help in case any air were to just shoot down under it. This would definitely keep that, but all the air should be going this way anyways, but in the event, you always want to minimize every little loss that you can. So I'll pop that back on there. I'm probably just going to put some super glue along the entire seam just to see if that'll help it sit on there better, but either way, when that's on, it shouldn't be able to go anywhere anyways. All right, so that's going to end it for today's video. Next we'll probably get into the exhaust, as I said. But otherwise, our intercooler set, really good fitment, as tight as we can pretty much for everything. This side is going to not coming through this hole. We got to clean that up just a little bit. You can see we get to our drive-by-wire there. This side I have a hole coming in through the well part, so it's a lot easier to route. There is a harness and stuff on the bottom on the opposite side, so you can't just go straight up through here. And then like if we do want to keep this, which is fine for just like fuel venting and everything. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Give it a like if you want, subscribe, see more. Should be getting a lot more videos out soon. Probably gonna pick up a better camera for this one, just because I know there is a smudge probably right here where you guys are looking. So yeah, just make everything better quality overall.